Hey, true crime fanatics, this is Claire.
And I'm Andy.
You're tuned in to the Homicide Hobbies podcast, which is a podcast for people who love to hear about the horrendous crimes that people commit. Enjoy.
So today we're going to talk about Catherine Mary Knight. Catherine was born October 24th, 1955. Catherine's claim to fame is she's the first Australian woman to be sentenced to life imprisonment without parole. The life of Catherine was marked by violence and sexual abuse. So
was she the doer or the receiver?
Yes.
Thanks for clearing that up.
No problem. We're going to start off with Catherine's mother, Barbara, because I feel like, again, this is some back history that we need to better understand why Catherine turns into the woman that she becomes. She ends up marrying Catherine's father, Ken Knight. I don't know what her mom did for a living, but her father worked at a slaughterhouse. Let's discuss good old Barb. Okay. So Barbara married Jack Ruffin, and they lived in a small town of Aberdeen and New South Wales Hunter Valley. Barbara and Jack had 4 sons before Barbara began an affair with Ken Knight. Okay. Mm-hmm. So Ken was a friend and co-worker of Barbara's husband.
Ew.
Yeah. So Barbara and Ken's families were well known in the conservative town, and the affair was a huge scandal, like huge. It was such a big scandal that the backlash forced Barbara and Ken to move away to Moray. Barbara's 4 sons, none of them moved with her when she moved to go live with Ken.
They stayed with Dad, I assume.
2 of her older boys stayed with their dad, and the 2 younger sons went to go live with an aunt in Sydney. So Barbara has 4 more kids. That's 8 kids if we're counting. Has 4 more kids with Ken, including twin girls born in 1955. Catherine, our future cray-cray, was the younger of the twin daughters.
Oh, okay.
So
were they identical twins?
I'm not sure. It's because you've seen a picture of her. She's a looker.
Well, I was thinking of like with Dave, he's a twin, but you know, she's a she and he's a he.
Yeah, I'm not sure if they were identical or not. Catherine was in an unconventional and dysfunctional family as a child. If you haven't figured that out already, Barb is not the greatest of mothers. In 1959, when Catherine was 4 years old, Jack, Barbara's original husband, her first husband that she had the 4 boys with, he dies. When Jack dies, the 2 older boys that were living with him move into Barbara's house with Ken. And
that's awkward.
Their 4 kids. Right. So mom's got a new family, 4 daughters. And now the first 2 boys come move in with them. It's crazy. It seems like it would be uncomfortable. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you're the outsider, and let's talk grieving your dad at the same time.
Yeah, and then to compile onto that mess, Catherine's father, Ken, was an alcoholic who was violent, and dear sweet Ken would rape Barbara up to 10 times a day.
A day?
10 times a day.
Gotta hand it to him for stamina, but how does he find time to go to work?
I don't know. I just pictured maybe he was they were all quickies.
Still Andrea the rebound on that.
Spread out through 24 hours, I guess. But still, yes.
The man has to sleep, so I'm only talking about like he couldn't possibly be. That's how did I just think chafing.
Maybe he used some Neosporin. Shout out to you, Dave.
Just so we're clear, I found that information out the same time Salty Nuts divulged it, and there is no Neosporin usage in our sex life. Just so we're clear.
Shit. Well, I hope I'm
But
just gonna
so
leave that one alone.
see
Anyway,
yeah.
so you got dear sweet alcoholic Ken, who's beating on Barbara and raping her 10 times a day. Barbara
Did
would in turn,
he was
huh?
he always an alcoholic? Because how exactly did she trade that one?
Actually, you know what? I'm not sure how long Barbara and Catherine, or I mean, Barbara and Ken stay married. It's just this is the household that Catherine's growing up in. And I felt like it was kind of important for everybody to understand,
Uh-huh.
you know?
He's an alcoholic. Raper. Gotcha.
Yeah. And it's also kind of crazy that, like, I couldn't imagine being 4 years old and then having two older kids move into the house and be like, oh, yeah, by the way, these are mom's other kids. Oh, yeah, there's two more out there too.
You've got a wicked memory because I don't remember anything from 4.
I'm just saying, like, I don't, I don't remember much about being 4 years old
Evidently,
either,
I wasn't a
but
deep thinker at 4. I was focused on my bedwetting, evidently.
Green River. If you have no idea what we're talking about, please reference our other episodes because you'll find the little Easter eggs we throw in there. They'll make more sense. Um,
For our
so
devoted followers, you get it.
up you. If you're not following us, hit that follow button. Anyway, I
Is
digress.
there a follow button?
Yes. I feel sorry for the podcast you listen to.
I really need to brush it up.
Hit the follow. Give us 5 stars because if you're listening, you obviously like us. So, Catherine's mom, Barbara, recap, getting raped 10 times a day, dad, alcoholic, two other half brothers, move in, 4 years old, growing up. Gotcha. So Barbara would often tell her daughters the details of her sex life with their father and how
Can,
much she hated sex and men.
can you really call it a sex life if you're not a willing participant?
I feel like it's still sex, the act of sex,
Hmm.
but
I wouldn't consider it my sex life. I'm not. I'm a tool for someone else. I'm not a participant. So it's not mine. It's his.
true. I still don't think she should be sharing that with her young children. That seems wrong. It's child
Yeah.
abuse in there somewhere. Don't know the details, but I'm about 90% that that's
But at
some
the
sort of
same time, we're talking the 1950s. Probably can't talk to anyone else and being raped so many times in a day. She's probably cracked mentally.
yeah. Well, later, when Catherine complained to her mother that one of her partners wanted her to take part in a sex act that she did not want to perform, by the way, I totally thought of anal when she was saying that, just saying, but she didn't
I
want to
was
do.
thinking head, but nice to know where your head's at. How old
I,
is she during this?
I'm not sure. It just says later.
Well, she was just 4, so I would hope it was later.
We're talking about her mother and her interactions. Okay, so it kind of hops around, but Barbara told she told her daughter, quote, put up with it and stop complaining.
Motherly advice. Well, you know what? She should rewind to when she was 4 years old, and give her the same sound advice. Just saying.
Hindsight's 2020. Catherine claims that she was sexually assaulted by several members of her family, but specifically states that it was not by her father
So
and
brothers.
that she continued to be sexually assaulted until she was age 11. Yeah. So Catherine said her brothers had sexually assaulted her, and she also claimed that her parents routinely beat her and her siblings with a dog leash and an electrical cord.
Ouch.
And those events have largely been confirmed by other members of the family. Oh,
Was she
kind
the
of
only
sad.
one getting smacked around and molested, or
No, no. It said her and her
everyone?
siblings. So,
Fantastic. Great family.
yeah. And other than her twin sister, the only person who Catherine was close to was her uncle, and his name was Oscar Knight.
How close?
I, I think it was not inappropriate, but I'm not sure. It just says they were close. And then in 1969, he committed suicide. So she was around 14 years old when her favorite uncle killed himself. And she still to this day claims that his ghost visits her. So there's
She's
that.
she's still alive?
Our mother was born in 57. So yes, this lady's still
Oh.
alive.
Well, I guess even if she was born in 57. Well, I wasn't sure.
She was born in
She could have
55.
died in prison. You don't know?
I
Well,
do know.
maybe you do.
So anyway, when Catherine attended high school, she became a loner. Her classmates that remember her describe her as a bully who picked on smaller children. Catherine was known at school for being, quote, rough as guts.
Makes your guts smooth. But
Well, they found her rough as guts, and she found herself often in violent altercations with other kids. She assaulted at least one boy at school with a weapon and once injured a teacher, who they later found out that the teacher acted in self-defense. But when she wasn't being super bitchy, Catherine was a great student and often earned awards for her good behavior.
I feel like that acting out, though, is like a common thread with kids that are molested or abused in whatever ways.
I agree. And I think the awards for her good behavior were more like they were trying to do like a positive incentive to encourage the better behaved version of her, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But Catherine decides to quit school at age 15. She never learned to read or write.
What?
Yep. She dropped out of school at 15 and she
The
had
hell were they
never,
teaching them?
she just, good question.
They don't wait till you're 14 to start the teachings.
Well, we have an uncle that never learned to read or write. He graduated from high school. I think he's on a third grade level or was.
But at the same time, did he get awards for his great behavior? I'm so confused.
I don't know. I feel like at this point in time, I'm going to stop saying I feel like, by the way. Um,
Did I just say it again?
no, but I did like
Oh.
the third or fourth time in this
Well,
episode.
quit feeling things.
I just don't want to offend people because I feel like I'm going to be offending people in this episode.
Yeah, well, fuck that.
So Catherine ends up getting a job as a cutter in a clothing factory. A year later, she gets employed and refers to this new job as her dream job. And
Cutting
she's
fabric?
she leaves that job and then gets a new job a year later, and this new job is her dream job, cutting up. It's called offal. It's OFFAL. And I'm not sure if you know what that is, but it says that she's cutting up offal at the local abattoir. So offal is a variety of non-muscular parts of a carcass, usually the entrails and internal organs. And this, I quote from the Oxford Dictionary: eating pieces of braised offal turned his stomach. Also referred to as material or waste material.
But you know what? You know, chicken wings used to be part of the waste, and then now it's like a
They are
coveted
waste.
thing. Well, again, but then when they were like slaughtering and chopping, it used to be a throwaway item, and then somebody got the idea to batter them, fry them, do all that fun stuff. Now
Okay,
it's
well,
like a staple on Super Bowl Sunday.
well, when the internal organs and entrails become part of Super Bowl Sunday,
You don't know.
don't invite me. So anyway, and then the local abattoir is also known as a slaughterhouse. She was promoted to boning.
Sorry. I thought she already was doing that, is all. Took me by surprise.
That was not funny. But anyway, so because she did a good job gutting these animals.
She went to deboning.
Yep. And she was gifted her own set of butcher knives. The knives, she was very proud of them, so she hung them over her bed so they would, and I quote, would always be handy if I needed them,
What?
end quote.
I get being proud of the knives. I get being proud of being promoted. Because if you've ever watched anybody debone something, it is a skill, especially without like really fucking up the meat.
I
But
would not hang knives over my bed.
so I wouldn't either, even if I was really proud of them and I was like, what's his face? Sweeney Todd level of skilled with those blades. Because my luck would be somebody would shut a door hard and that shit would get me. That's how that
That's
would
what I
happen. Final destination moments.
I told Jason the other day, I was like, if I hung knives above our bed and a train went by, that should rattle off the wall. He'd get stabbed in the skull and I'd get blamed for that shit.
Here lies Andrea. Death at the hands of her own knives.
My own decorating.
Well, that's
So,
killer.
so I had to 100% rob this title because
You
it
did
made me
not.
freaking laugh. And it was first comes love, then comes attempted murder.
Play.
Made me laugh. Sorry, it made me laugh. At this point, Catherine's 19 years old. She meets a coworker named David Kellett in 1973. David, like her Paul, was a heavy drinker. He became a heavy drinker due to two traumatic incidents in his life. The first one was his previous railway job, is when his best friend was killed in front of him in a shunting accident. I did not know what shunting was. I had to look that up. It's when you move one train from one track or from one line to the other.
Good to know.
So he apparently he watched his best friend die.
So did he get smushed?
It did not have details.
That's pretty
I'm guessing
shitty.
he either got squished between two cars or maybe fell under a wheel. I don't know.
Mm.
All you can do
Well,
is
I hope
speculate.
for his sake it was quick rather than he had to hold him
Suffering.
while he squealed.
Yeah.
But traumatic nonetheless. He has my
And
sympathies.
then a short while later, he rescued injured occupants from a school bus, which had been struck by a train.
The hell's
And
with these trains?
well, he worked with the railway, so I guess
It's a lot of
I don't know.
tragedy.
It's a lot. And to make matters worse, when he was helping the school bus, 6 children were killed by the train.
Like
Yeah.
on the bus or just while they're doing stuff, then here comes 6 unsuspecting little victims.
No, they were on the school bus when the train hit them. And then he got on the school bus to try to help the kids that were injured, and 6 of those kids were dead.
Yeah.
So he became a heavy drinker. I feel like he needs some therapy, but I understand the heavy drinking because that's
well, again, that time though, men were supposed to just keep their feels to themselves. So
yes. So he eventually lost his job at the railway because of his behavior and his work performance, and soon starts working at the Aberdeen abattoir and becomes friends with Catherine's brother.
and then she goes, "Oh, they haven't met yet." I was gonna say, is her pickup line gonna be, "You want to see my knives?"
So David, with his wicked temper and his alcohol problems, he frequently gets into fights. And Catherine, growing up with this kind of violence in her life, was
He
not
reminds her
surprised.
of Paul.
Well, she decides to surprise her new boyfriend and she joins in on one of his drunken scuffles. She starts throwing fists.
I bet he was turned on big time.
He was. He super duper was.
Did he
And she
propose right then and there, or did he wait till after his hangover subsided?
I would guess probably right there because less than a year later, they're married.
That doesn't mean he proposed the same night they're brawling.
No,
But
I understand that. But I'm just simply saying this bitch throws down with him and he's like, man, she's a keeper.
But at the same time, I can appreciate where his head's at, that he's in a scuffle and she could have run or stood by there squealing, and she jumped in when he needed some help. So
Well, she was well known in Aberdeen
I
for
would
for
imagine after
threatening
that.
for threatening anyone who pissed her off. So you make this chick angry and she's coming at you. And mind you, she's only 19.
Oh shit. Do we have like size wise? I feel like she couldn't have been like 4'8" and 60 pounds. So
I'm not sure how tall she was actually. She doesn't look like a beast in the pictures. I mean, her face is
what was her name again?
Catherine Knight.
I just got a quick Google. They can tell me she's a Capricorn, but a simple height and weight. I assume she's still in prison.
Yeah. And to gain weight as they get older, and she already doesn't look like a big woman.
Yeah, it doesn't say. It just says unknown.
Well, she doesn't look like a big woman now. And at 19, I'm guessing she wasn't. People tend to be on the smaller side as young adults and they fill out as they get older. Granted, I know there's the exceptions to the rule, but seeing as how she's not a big woman now, I'm going to guess she wasn't too big.
Yeah.
But she had a lot of pent up hostility wrapped in those fists, though. So in 1974, Catherine and David are on their way to get married and they hop on her motorcycle. David is super intoxicated and he is on the back of the bike with his hands wrapped around her. And at the service, Catherine's dear sweet mother, Barb, this is David telling in an interview, he's saying this is what Catherine's mother told him on their wedding night. Okay. The old girl said to me, "Watch out. You better watch this one or she'll fucking kill you. Stir her up the wrong way or do the wrong thing and you're fucked. Don't ever think of playing up on her," meaning cheating on her. "She'll fucking kill you." And that's what.
So they had a close relationship.
Yeah, it's so crazy. That's what her mom said to her about to be husband. David's later quoted saying that Barbara told him that Catherine had a screw loose or something.
Clearly.
Anywho, it wasn't before long before David found himself being dominated by Catherine. Surprise, surprise.
He passed that torch when he rode bitch on the motorcycle. Like he can't be too surprised there.
So here you go. On their wedding night, Catherine tried to strangle David. She later explained it was because he fell asleep after only having sex 3 times.
Right.
How's that? Yeah. Like, she only had sex 3 times with him. So, and then he wanted to go to sleep. Mind you, he's been drinking all day.
She's lucky she got it once.
Yes, liquor dick is a thing too.
It is.
Good Lord. Anyhow,
I thought it was whiskey dick.
I've always heard it as liquor dick.
You only heard that because you're doing the licking, or it's liquor?
Liquor, like alcohol. Thank you very much. My kid sister, everybody. Even though she tried to kill him one day into their marriage, the union lasted for 10 more years.
Maybe he woke up and didn't remember.
He remembered. But David was
like
also
he was at fault. He didn't fulfill his end.
You know what? I'm not certain.
Maybe he kind of liked it.
Maybe. She just wanted some BDSM in her life.
He started doing it himself when she was gone. Like, give me that belt.
So David was often unfaithful.
You don't?
Yeah. So he cheated on her a lot. He did not take her mother's
warning. She choked
warning.
him nearly to death their wedding night, and he risked that? This guy likes to gamble, huh?
Apparently so. And he was warned by her mother that don't cheat on her or she's going to fucking kill you.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't have bought that one either. I feel like people make threats when they get married, like
But
family members, like,
then
"You do anything and I'm gonna kill you."
no, no, no. The mother said Barbara told him, "Catherine's gonna kill you."
I
She didn't say,
know.
"I'll kill you for hurting my daughter." No, "If you cheat on my daughter, the bitch is fucking crazy and she's gonna murder your ass."
Yeah, but when you're getting married, you still are in the mindset of, heart stars and horseshoes, the
Till your
sun.
wedding night when you wake up to your wife with both hands wrapped around your
You
throat
don't
and you
know.
cannot breathe.
When he woke up in that moment, he might have been staring at the ceiling going, "So she was right. The old gal gave me sound advice."
And yet he chose to still cheat.
He liked to live dangerously. He had an addiction to adrenaline.
Apparently so. So their marriage was violent and one time a very pregnant Catherine burned all of David's clothes and shoes before hitting him across the back of the head with a frying pan.
Did he critique the food? I feel like
No, but
I
that
feel
would be
like this
fucking
man
amazing.
I feel like this man
Like,
dabbles with dangerous things. But you know what? He
no,
was cheating anyhow. Did he really expect once she was hormonal, things are gonna be dandy? That's not how that
you know what?
goes.
We've already established the minds of men we don't quite comprehend. So because well, she bashed him in the head and burned all his stuff because he got home late from a darts competition because
No.
he reached the finals.
And darts,
So because he
Andrea, and
so
darts.
that
Yeah, better bet a lot of money on that thing, but still, I bet dinner was cold, and he got that shit right upside the head. Not saying he deserved it, just trying to provide insight to just one crazy female. Not that I've done that, just so we're clear. Or will do it. It's okay, Dave, you're safe.
watch out, Dave, don't critique her cooking.
But he knows that.
So in fear for his life, David ran to a neighbor's house where he collapsed and was treated for a severely fractured skull. Like, that's
Whoa.
bad.
Well, I would imagine the skillet upside the head was it cast iron? He was able to run a straight line, although he could have been zigzagging it to the neighbors. I don't know.
He's lucky she was pregnant because I'm guessing that she
That
got slowed
couldn't keep
down.
up.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Uh,
true.
so police wanted to charge Catherine, but she talked to David and convinced him to drop the charges against her.
Well, I imagine he's in a stuck position because she's pregnant with, I assume, his child. So, yeah, being the
Yeah.
person to send your spouse to jail is a stuck. Ugh. And we're back
Can
in
I?
that thing of where men and spousal abuse and all that. I feel for you.
Yeah. So in May 1976, Catherine's about 20, about to be 21.
Oh shit, I'm still picturing her like in her 40s. I don't know why, but she's not even that old and she's
No.
throwing skillets. God dang.
So she's 20, about to be 21, and she just gives birth. Like it was shortly after she gave birth to their first child, Melissa Ann. David left Catherine for another woman and moved to Queensland.
Well, she can't be surprised she hit him with a skillet.
He left his wife and their daughter in the middle of the night. Like,
That's the only way he could get out, Andrea.
I feel like he
It'd be
was
the
so
it
scared.
wouldn't be the other way around. If it was he did it to her, she would have snuck out in the dead of night too. It's the only way to leave. She doesn't leave the house. She's always there. She's always watching. He's got to wait till those peepers are shut and tiptoe on out of there. He probably didn't even take anything because the man didn't have anything to bring.
Yeah, she burned it all. So,
He
according to
didn't even
him,
have a spare pair of undies. Poor
oh
fella.
gosh. So, he was apparently unable to cope with her abuse. And Catherine,
She
being
tracked
the
him down.
gentle soul that she is, she was seen the following day pushing her new baby in a stroller, violently throwing the stroller from side to side.
It's not funny. She's crazy. She's done cracked.
She cracked way before this, but could you imagine that? Like that poor
How does
baby.
one push the stroller violently? It's just like, was this a cobble road?
So I think it says that it's a pram. I don't
Yeah,
know if it's like
it's a
one of those
stroller.
old style bassinet type strollers or if
Yes,
it's like one of the
with the
American
4
style.
big
Yes. So
wheels.
I feel like it was probably in my head. I think that it was probably like 2 wheels are up in the air at one point and then slams it down and the other 2 wheels come up from side to side, like doing some wheelie action
Still
with
not
this.
funny because the poor baby in there is just like getting whiplash, tossed around,
And she's only a
rolling.
few weeks old too. Like so not funny, but
Like,
like,
go to sleep already.
your
You're
fucking dad
getting,
left me in the middle of the night.
or you're getting the frying pan.
So obviously people see her doing this. Police are called. She was admitted into the St. Elmo's Hospital, which, by the
Ooh,
way, I totally pictured Elmo like
yeah,
Sesame Street.
Cookie
Ow.
Monster. I think this
Yep.
is pre Elmo, so
Yeah, maybe. We're in the 70s. How I feel like fuck the I feel like what the hell?
quit feeling things. I don't know what to tell you.
I think Sesame
This
Street's been around
isn't
for quite a while.
my feels hobbies. Get to the murder ends. That's what we all here for.
Well, I just did your child assault, so you tend to like those.
Go. The hostile stroller pushing. Yep. That's what I was looking for.
So anyway, she's admitted into the hospital and diagnosed with postnatal depression, and she spent several weeks in the hospital recovering. I'm curious where the baby was while she was in the hospital.
Well, her mom's still alive, right?
Barbara?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Old Barb. She's granny. Why wouldn't she watch it for a bit? I mean, given she didn't do a stellar job with her child, but they don't know that.
Well, I couldn't find anything that said where the baby was when mom was in the hospital for a few weeks. But after being released, Catherine put the 2-month-old baby, Melissa, on the railroad tracks with a train due to arrive. And then she left the baby there and went and stole an axe, went into town threatening to kill several people.
So it seems like they cured her just right. She seemed ready to be released.
Yeah, they decided this bitch is too crazy. We'll go ahead and just send her on her way. So a homeless man known as Old Ted was near the railway line and he found the 2-month-old baby, Melissa, and he rescued her minutes before the train passed. So Melissa,
Shit.
yeah,
It's
that
lucky
baby
to
was
be
minutes
alive.
away. So
She's lucky she didn't get the axe.
she is lucky.
If old Ma hadn't come back with the axe, she'd be in a couple pieces. Travel size.
I feel like a 2-month-old baby
Hey,
would
by
be
the
more
way, you
mush.
didn't do your triggers. Mush.
I
That was a
know.
brand new axe. It would have been sharp. It would have been like
It's
sushi.
not brand new. She went and stole it from somebody's house.
Oh, I thought you said she went shopping for an axe.
No, she did go shopping in other people's yards. She stole an axe and
That
then
is
went to
not
town.
shopping. That's still stealing.
I never originally said she went shopping.
Okay. We'll just have to agree to disagree.
It's recorded. You can literally hear whether or not I said she went shopping for an axe.
Fine.
She stole the shit, went into town, and threatened a bunch of motherfuckers to axe them to death.
How do you know what they did in their off time? So go on. So she acquired an axe. The baby's rescued. She's making threats. Does anyone perhaps think she's not healed at this point?
So Catherine was arrested again and taken back to Elmo's hospital.
Where they did a good job on the first round. Let's give them a second go.
Sure thing.
Turns out this first one didn't take.
Well, guess what? The first time around, she spent a couple weeks there. Any guesses on how long she spent the second time?
2 days.
Close. She recovered and signed herself out the next day. She spent 24 hours. Like, you got released, come home, try to kill your baby with the railroad
They
tracks,
just said
go
she
threaten
just
to kill
needed
people.
she just
Why was
needed a
she not
nap.
arrested?
She just needed a quick nap, Andrea. And it was nice of that homeless man to do free babysitting. I mean, he wasn't doing anything else.
But why didn't they arrest her? Like, no charges?
Because they all are thinking she's just crazy because she's a new mom. You know how them be.
And her husband left her.
That too.
So a few days later, after she's done trying to kill her baby, Catherine convinces a neighbor and the neighbor's 16-year-old daughter to give her a ride. And once in the car, she tells the neighbor woman that she wants to be driven to Queensland to go assault David.
She
And
tells them of that plan?
And the woman's like, no, not gonna happen. So Catherine picks one of her knives and slashes the woman in the face. Yeah. And she demands that she drives her to Queensland.
Well, now she can't drive. She's got blood all over her face. She can't
Well, they're
see.
already in the car, so they start driving. The woman escapes after they stop at a service station. But by the time police arrive, Catherine's taken a young boy hostage, and she was threatening to kill him with the knife. Like, this lady is batshit crazy. And guess what? I don't know why this shit made me laugh as much as it did. Maybe my screws are coming loose.
She married the young boy.
No. She was disarmed when police attacked her with, any guess?
Beanbags.
Brooms.
Oh, is that like code for something else?
No.
Why are they armed with brooms to begin with? Although I guess it works out because you can knock that shit right out of her hands. The knives, like they just swept her ass to death.
Again, I just pictured like those stiff bristle brooms that you can use like outside on sidewalks or whatever, like just jabbing her with the broom until she dropped the knife.
Well, it actually is pretty smart because then they don't get stabbed. They can disarm her. Did they borrow shop owners' brooms? Like, just, I'm commandeering this here broom so we can take this lady quietly.
I'm pretty sure because I would hope they did not arrive with brooms in tow.
Like, could you get your broom out of the back of your car? We need it this time. She's armed.
Yeah, pretty much.
I don't know why I'm thinking of the Southern, because I guess that's the wrong.
Yeah, wrong dialect there. But she was admitted once again to a psychiatric hospital. And Catherine tells the nurses that she had every intention of killing the mechanic at the service station because he repaired her husband David's car, which allowed him to leave her in the first place. Because that seems like it's directed the right direction.
Yeah.
And then after
was she also going to go after the car manufacturer for producing it?
Maybe. But that was probably later in the line, because then she proceeds to tell the nurse that after she killed the mechanic, she wanted to head over to both her husband and his mother's house in Queensland.
Naturally.
Oh, it gets so much better. You ready for this? You're not ready for this. Police pick up the phone and call David and tell him of the incident, with the broom smackage and stuff and the face slashing.
Did he laugh?
Any guesses what he does?
I hope he comes for his kid, because I think he should have taken her back after the railroad track incident. Just saying.
He leaves his girlfriend and moves back to Aberdeen with his mother to support Catherine.
But again, I feel like this is partially like the whole new baby, single mom. She's losing her shit and he feels obligated. Either that or his new girlfriend wasn't strangling him right. He wanted a frying pan. Let's face it, he already had a head injury. He's not thinking straight.
I'm sorry, but if the cops knock on my door and tell me that my significant other just held somebody hostage to somebody's hostage, they're still married.
Yeah, but they're clearly estranged. He left, he's fucking another woman. They're
She's
insignificant.
she's threatened, like vocalized that she wanted to kill him and his mommy, and he goes back to her.
Telling you. He liked the frying pan. He
Well,
was
they end
into
up
some sick shit.
So Catherine was released from the hospital on August 9th, 1976, into the care of her mother-in-law.
Ooh,
Again, I feel like that's a bad choice because this bitch is crazy. Literally been hospitalized at least 3 times because she's crazy and threatened to kill said mother-in-law. But we're going to go ahead and let you go with her. You're responsible for the bitch that wants to kill you. That makes no sense.
did they keep her knives?
No. So David, the mother-in-law, and crazy Kathy moved to a city of Brisbane, where
Mhm.
she got a job at Denmore Meatworks. And then on March 6th, 1983, they had another daughter, Natasha. And then in 1984, Catherine leaves David. Like,
Build, I want you because you don't want me, and then now that you do, I don't want you.
like, talk about a blow to his ego. You take this crazy lady back, and then she leaves you.
No,
Poor
he
guy.
wanted her to hit him with the frying pan, but she didn't want to hit him anymore if he wanted to be hit. That takes the fun out of it.
Well, first she moves to her parents' house in Aberdeen and then a rented house nearby. She returns to work at the abattoir where she worked before when she was just 19. And she ends up injuring her back. And a year later, she went on a disability pension. So the
Disability
government,
for what?
because she injured her back. I guess she could no longer work at her beloved butcher slaughterhouse shop place. So the government gave
Maybe
her a
she should
housing
have.
commission.
Maybe she should have quit wielding those frying pans.
So anyway, she gets free
I was gonna
housing.
say I wasn't sure if the internet died for a second. I'm like, that was a lot of silence. Like, just
No,
have you lifted a cast iron pan over your head? Tried to throw it little and wheeled it. I hope she used 2 arms. That's probably accounting for the back injury. She had the wrong stance.
maybe she put too much umph in it and didn't have her feet in the right position.
Mm-hmm.
But
But now
anywho,
she
so
gets rewarded for it.
yep, she gets free housing. So it does get a little bit confusing because this lady comes in pairs, meaning we're going to talk about 4 men. First one was David. That's the one she just left. Now she meets a new man named David. Then later she meets a man named John and then meets another man named John. So we got 2 Davids back to back and then 2 Johns back to back. Okay.
She's got a type.
She does. She goes in pairs. So she just left David number 1, father of 2 daughters, assaulted him with the frying pan. So Catherine meets David Saunders. He's 38 years old. He's a minor. And it's at this point, it's 1986. She really likes David. And a few months after they meet, he moves in with her and her daughters. Even though he moves in with her, he decides to keep his old apartment.
Well, he heard about her past, so.
Well, like her previous relationships, this one quickly grew toxic and violent. After a while, Catherine became jealous about what he did when she was not around. Like she just didn't trust him. There's no
Important
trust.
question. Are
Yeah.
the knives still hanging above the bed?
So everywhere that Catherine moves to, that is her choice of decor, is her butcher knives are hung above the bed. So all these times she moves, she does
Hope she's
hang the
got good
knives above the
wall
bed.
anchors.
I'm not sure. I'm guessing because there's no talk of any type of falling knives. I feel like that would just add a slight bit of humor to this story.
If that's how she was finished off.
Catherine would be jealous, and she would do that annoying thing that some people do in relationships. And rather than just end it, she would kick him out, and then he would move back to his apartment. And then she would follow after him and be like, "Oh, please come back." And then he'd be like, "I love you too, baby." And then move back. So they end up staying together. They go back and forth like that. They even end up having another daughter. So now Catherine has 3 kids, 3 daughters.
But this is their first child.
Yes, their first child. And in May 1978, she's mad at him. She thinks he's been naughty. So she decides to teach him a lesson.
Was he? Or was she just thinking it?
Just thinking it. So, trigger warning for all the animal lovers out there.
She boils his rabbit.
She cuts the throat of his 2-month-old puppy in front of him for no reason other than to show him what would happen if he ever cheated on her. And then she proceeds to knock him unconscious with a frying pan.
Somebody needs to get rid of that pan, but the poor puppy.
Right? Like, that's horrible. But
is she pregnant during this?
No, maybe, because it says that they stay together and then eventually have a daughter about a year later. So she's not pregnant.
I don't know about you, but nothing gets me hot than when Dave slits the throat of one of my dogs. Only no. I know what'll fix this. Let's have a child.
This lady's so fucking crazy. And there's so many different times that
she should have been committed.
Yes.
Like
and
indefinitely.
Nobody does anything.
Like, clearly there's an imbalance here.
Or at least fucking sterilize her, because apparently her violence increases with children. And I get it, there's hormonal issues out there, but still,
I don't know if it's necessarily her violence increases by hormones as much as like maybe the stress of caring for said children. Like at another one, the stress increases.
Well, if let's just say she was early on pregnant with baby number 3.
Yeah.
She again whips out her frying pan. And just like with baby number 1, with her first man, she whips out the frying pan. So she tends to go on the frying pan head bashing routine when she's pregnant. I don't know. It's just interesting. When it's spelled out like that, I'm sure that there's more to it than that. And in June 1988, that's when she gave birth to her 3rd daughter, Sarah. And David's so happy to finally have a baby. He decides to put a deposit on a house. And Catherine ends up paying off the deposit with her workers' compensation when it comes through in 1989. Funny you mentioned it earlier about Catherine's decorating choice. She decorated her entire house with, any guesses?
Recycled bones from the slaughterhouse.
Super close. Animal skins, skulls, horns, and rusty animal traps, leather jackets, old boots, machetes, rakes, pitchforks, and don't forget those knives above her headboard.
So she liked the rustic go of it.
She liked something. It's said that every square inch of that house, including the ceilings, was covered.
The ceiling's a bit much, but perhaps they had a drafty house, and that's how she handled insulation.
Yes, I'm sure those machetes helped with that insulation wonderfully.
Just masking details, just painting the picture in my mind.
I'm more or less fascinated with the fact that, like, she's got 3 young kids running around her house at this point, and she's got knives hanging off the walls and ceilings. Like, what the hell?
It was probably their baby mobile. Like, they were paring knives. Like,
some Addams Family.
And let's think about the fact that she did place a child on the railroad tracks. So her level of care for their safety, that threshold is very low.
True. So back to our story here. After an argument, She hit David in the face with an iron and then stabbed him in the abdomen with a pair of scissors.
Was the iron on?
I'm not sure. He gets mad, rightfully so.
I think
He
mad's
moves
an understatement.
he moves back to his apartment, but when he decides to return to Catherine, he finds that she cut up all of his clothes, and then David decided this bitch is fucking bonkers. And again, yet another man that doesn't take his kids with him. David took a long leave of absence from work and went into
To
hiding.
heal from his abdominal wounds and the recovery from the iron to his face. Who wants to explain that?
Well, that and he hides. Like he goes into straight up hiding. He's hiding from
She's
Catherine.
crazy.
Well, she's trying to hunt his ass down, but no one will admit to her where he is. And months later, David shows up to see his daughter, and he finds out that Catherine went to the police and told them that she was afraid of him. And they gave her an apprehended violence order, so kind of like a protective order against him.
Oh, so then he unknowingly shows up. Does he get arrested?
It doesn't say, but pretty much that's the end of their story. Like, he's not allowed around. He's supposedly violent.
Another one of those, as soon as he wants her back, although that wasn't the case, that he can't have her back.
Right.
Woman
And she's
scorned.
keeping him away from the little girl, which
Yeah.
I hate when people use the kids to manipulate.
Yeah. He
And
got out
also
alive, though. He should count himself lucky.
he should, because we're getting there. So that brings us to 1997. Catherine once again becomes pregnant by a 43-year-old slaughterhouse worker
How old
named
is she?
John.
You. And
Yeah.
can I hope that it wasn't at the slaughterhouse? Shit's not kosher at
Did
all.
your meat taste kind of salty this week?
The special sauce is now known.
Oh, gosh.
You said 1997 to 1955?
Yeah.
She's 42? Or he's 42? Yeah. Who's 42?
That's how old she is.
And she's pregnant again?
Mm-hmm.
This is baby number
4.
Okay. Same guy?
So,
oh, no. What's the new guy's name? David again?
No. So Catherine's left David at this point, and she's 42 years old, pregnant by 43-year-old fellow slaughterhouse worker, John Chillingworth. So Catherine gives birth to a little baby boy named Eric. And John and Catherine stay together for about 3 years. While no violent incidents were reported about the relationship, it did end after John learned that Catherine was cheating on him. So for a lady that doesn't like being cheated on, she does a lot of cheating herself. Just saying. Because she cheated on the first David with the second David, and now she cheated on the second David
John.
with a John, with another John.
Told you, she has a type. Maybe she doesn't think it's cheating if it's another John.
Maybe she got confused.
She's like, your name is David? My husband's name is David.
It's not cheating because you're the same name.
I'm a twin too.
So she leaves the first John Chillingworth that she just had the baby boy with for her new lover, John Price. Okay, so since I forgot to throw out my trigger warnings, I'm going to tell you, if you haven't picked up on it, we're about to have some really crazy, disgusting stuff, some extreme violence.
Because the frying pan and the iron and the stabbing with the scissors was not extreme. That was just the hors d'oeuvre.
Yeah, so we're going to get into some pretty gross stuff. If you're eating, I suggest you stop.
If you're pooping, continue.
Just wash your hands before you touch your phone. Catherine's moved on to John Charles Thomas Price. It's quite the mouthful. John
That's what she said.
was born April 4th, 1955. John was already a father of 3. So now Catherine has 4 kids. He's got 3 kids. Quite the household.
They're all in the
Yeah.
same house or
Well,
intermittent?
as of right this second, they've just begun their affair. Catherine, him. John was described as a, quote, terrific bloke. He was liked by everybody that knew him. His personal marriage with the mother of his children had ended in 1988. And his 2-year-old daughter remains behind with his former wife. And then his 2 older children actually live with him. John is our victim in this story. But I gotta say, I feel like he was asking for it. I know you shouldn't victim shame, but John was well aware of Catherine's violent reputation when he decided to move her into his house in 1995.
You think it was an obsession of being able to fix somebody, or thinking that they had all the other relationships wronged her in some way? So trying to reason the why, so he thought he could help, like hug it out kind of thing.
Yeah, but at the same time, if you're raising 2 kids in your household, and I'm guessing they were pretty young considering his 3rd child's only 2 years old. So I'm guessing these kids are like elementary school age. You don't just move some chicken that you know has a violent reputation. You at
But
least you got to get a feel for whether or not, as much as you would love to blame everybody else for her being fucking nuts.
but at the same time, he just got her pregnant, so he doesn't have time for that luxury. He's got to move them all in, trying to do the responsible thing.
No, she's not pregnant. She was pregnant with the other guy, John's baby.
Oh, pretty sure.
No. So she was cheating on, I don't know. I'm, God damn it, Claire. You just made me realize that there's a huge error here. So one article says that Catherine in 1997, Catherine was pregnant with John Chillingworth's baby, and they have the baby boy. But then in this article, Catherine moves into the new John's house in 1995. So how did she move in with the second John 3 years before she's cranking out a kid with the other John?
Because she was living with the other one when she got pregnant with the other. She gets around.
She's sleeping around. She's moves into this John Price's house with his kids and some of her kids, and that's in 1995. At some point, she becomes pregnant with the other John's baby, and they have baby Eric. But then John Price and her are kind of on and off, so it's such a mess. God, this woman's so ugh. It says that his children did like her, so she must have been
She let him play with knives.
That's true. John Price was making great money working in the local mines. Yet another miner. And aside from violent arguments, quote, life was a bunch of roses. In 1998, Catherine and John Price fight. They get into a huge fight over him refusing to marry her. So guess what she does in retaliation? And I'll give you a hint. It's not a frying pan to the skull.
It's a broom.
Not quite. She videotapes items that she claimed he stole from work and then sent the tapes of the items to his boss. Yeah. So the items were out-of-date medical kits that he scavenged from the company. It says from the company rubbish tip. So I'm guessing it was just junk that they were going to pitch, and he decided to take them.
The rubbish bin is the trash. He fished it out of the top of the trash. But if they were throwing it out, although, so I think that's like a gray area. I don't know if he gets fired over it, but it's still technically stealing.
John was fired from the job that he'd held for over 17 years.
You don't imagine he's going home happy.
So the same day he was fired, he kicks her ass out.
Naturally.
A few months later,
Why was it?
or
What was the motivation that caused her to videotape it and send it?
because he wouldn't marry her,
Oh, well, that'll inspire a proposal.
right? So the two of them don't have any kids together. But she ends up returning back to her house. And then a few months later, John starts up a relationship with her again, but this time he refused to let her move back in with him. So basically, he'll take his strangulation and frying
Intermittently.
pan beatings, but she has to go home at night.
Yeah. As he needs his throat to heal. He can't take that 24 hours. Who could?
So
Who could?
with these new stipulations on their relationship, their fighting becomes more frequent, and most of his friends stop having anything to do with him because they don't like her and they don't want to be around her. So, kind of
I
sad.
don't want to
She's
be around her.
alienated him. Well, it's sad though because
Yeah, he's losing friends over it.
that brings us to
Or I guess a
February.
her rather than it.
So again, I go back to the brutality of this woman's temper is going to come into play. And again, I'm going to challenge your stomachs, your imaginations, and your willpower to listen to this. February of 2000, after a series of assaults on John, Catherine stabs him in the chest. He's fed up with her at this point.
After the stabbing or before?
After the stabbing,
That's the straw to draw. Like,
right?
final
This
one.
is the second
I
guy
could
that she
take
stabbed.
I could take the frying pan, but the stabbing, hard pass.
So
Enough.
this is the second, but the thing is, this is the second guy that's been
She
stabbed by her.
she's not that good in bed.
She's not that good looking either.
The
So
lights were off,
by the way,
Andrea. It was all in the tongue. What?
I totally pictured like maybe like an Angelina Jolie type person that's getting away with all this. She is not. We will post the pictures. The fact that this woman's got 4 guys that she's
Able to
literally
stab.
assaulting and cheating on, it's mind blowing. But anyway, so he makes it to 2000, early 2000, gets stabbed, fed up with her ass. He kicks her out of his house, says, "Don't come back." And then at the end of the month, February 29th, he stops at the magistrate's office on the way to work and took out a restraining order in an attempt to keep her away from himself and his children.
Where's he working now?
I'm not sure where he ended up getting a job. It didn't say. It said he was on his way to work.
I don't see how he took her back after that, anyhow.
I don't either. Like, again, I pictured some smoking hot chick that's being given all this leniency.
You
Not
don't
saying
know the
hot chicks
things
get
she
more.
does.
Well, I'm not saying that hot chicks should get away with more, but
They
these
do.
guys are getting stabbed, literally smashed in the head with frying pans, and they take her ass back. I don't get it.
She's doing something.
She is.
Something the others won't. It's anal. I knew it. I knew it.
Oh, gosh. So anyway, the same day John took out the restraining order, he goes to work and tells his coworkers that if he does not come to work the next day, it's because Catherine murdered him.
Some foreshadowing, eh?
Yes, because they beg him, they plead with him to please not return home. But she was still in his house refusing to leave, and she was going to get served, I guess, to get the fuck out.
I think people get blinded by, like, when they're breaking up, that wanting to see things happen for themselves. Like, just to be able to be there while she's being dragged out, maybe? I don't know.
Well, he has no idea of when anything is going to take place. All he knows is he wants her gone. She stabbed him in the chest. He goes and files this.
Whatever she's stabbing people with, it can't be very deep because I mean, I feel like if you were hospitalized for it or needed surgery, somebody would have to intervene and go, "So how'd these scissors find their way into your chest, sir?"
Yeah, I don't know. He tells his coworkers that if they don't hear from him, it's because she killed him. And he has to go home because now that he's had her served with this, as far as he knows, had her served with this get the hell out, stay away order, his kids are supposed to come home from school to said house. And he tells his coworkers that he's scared that if he doesn't go home, that Catherine would kill his kids. I feel like he probably should have picked his kids up from school that day. But John arrived home to find that Catherine was not there, but she had sent his kids to a sleepover at a friend's house. So she got the kids out of the house. So John spent the evening with his neighbors before going home to go to bed around 11 o'clock at night. Now, earlier in the day, while he's off getting the restraining order, trying to keep her ass away, Catherine goes out and buys herself some brand spanking new black lingerie.
And some pots?
No, she covers the pans over the pots. She videotaped all of her children while making comments that have since been interpreted as crude will. I'm not sure what that means. I can't elaborate on that. It's just she went out and bought herself some black underwear and comments that were considered inappropriate. Or I guess foreshadows that she's about to kill John Price.
Yeah, maybe it was one of those going around. Now say goodbye to daddy.
Yeah. Even though he's not daddy.
But she's crazy, Andrea.
Yeah. So she goes over to John's house while he's sleeping and watches TV for a little bit and then goes and takes a shower. She goes and wakes up John. They have sex.
And he couldn't have been too upset with her. I told you, she's doing something he likes.
And then he goes back to sleep. Like,
Well, come
so
on.
frustrating.
That's not the surprising part.
No, but like, you just took out a restraining order. What is wrong with you? Keep it in your pants, man.
He only has enough blood to run one part at a time, and unfortunately, the blood had gone to his nether regions, and
It's
he
because
was
she
not
woke him up.
processing things. She
It's
was
the
just
morning
she
wood.
was gonna it was the well, was it the morning? Was it?
No,
She
but
was
I
just
feel like if
gonna
you wake a guy up
dust
and they've
she
been
was
asleep long
just
enough.
gonna be dusting, and then she was like, "Oh, well, let's not waste that."
At 6 o'clock the next day, the neighbor was worried when they see that John's car was still in the driveway. And when he didn't show up to work, his employer was concerned, so they sent a coworker to go see what was keeping John. Both the neighbor and the coworker tried knocking on John's bedroom window because they figured they were hoping that maybe he slept in. But when there was no response, they called police and they noticed there was blood on the front door. Police show up around 8 a.m. They break down the back door and they find John Price's body with Catherine passed out from taking a large number of pills right next to him.
Do you
She'd
think she
stabbed,
was trying to kill herself?
we'll get there. She'd stabbed John Price with the butcher knives that she was gifted and snuggled with at night. But she stabbed him while he was sleeping. And according to the blood evidence, he woke up and tried to turn the lights on and tried to escape Catherine, but she chased him throughout the house, stabbing him. He managed to make it to the front door and to get outside, and he either stumbled backwards or she dragged him back into the house and into the hallway, where he finally died from bleeding out.
He almost made it.
Not really, because he
Maybe
suffered some
outside.
extreme. Well, Catherine went into town and withdrew $1,000 from John's account at the ATM. And then John's autopsy revealed he'd been stabbed at least 37 times in both the front and back of his body. And most of the wounds penetrated his vital organs. So she really fucked him up. Like, it was bad. A few hours after John had died, Catherine, trigger warning, can't say it enough, trigger, trigger, trigger. Catherine skinned him and then hung the skin from a meat hook that she attached to the doorway in the living room. She then decapitated John and cooked parts of his body. She served him up, his pieces of him, with baked potato, pumpkin, beetroot, zucchini, cabbage, yellow squash, and a gravy that she made. She made it into 2 place settings at the dinner table, and she made little note cards beside each plate, having the names of each one of John Price's children on it. She was planning to feed his body parts to his children.
The fuck?
Yeah. A third meal was thrown onto the back lawn. It was only partially eaten. The
Ugh.
police speculated that Catherine had attempted to eat it, but could not finish. So she attempted some cannibalism.
Wasn't the flavor she thought it was.
She claims that she has no memory of the crime. Police reported that they found John's decapitated head in a pot stewing with vegetables, and the pot was still warm.
Can you imagine how bad that smelled?
I know. Later, Catherine, after she skinned him, she drug his body and propped him up with the left arm draped over an empty 1.25 liter soda bottle and then crossed his legs.
But he's missing his head.
It doesn't matter. It's claimed in court to be an act of defilement, demonstrating Catherine's hate for John. I don't see how. I feel like she's just playing with his body. She's just
I
sick and
think
twisted.
she's left the world of common sense a while back, and she's just playing Dolly.
So Catherine left a handwritten note on top of a photograph of John. So the blood-stained note was covered with small bits of flesh. And we'll post a little snippet of this note. Mind you, she never really learned to read or write. So the note reads, "Time got you back, Jonathan, for raping my daughter. You to Beck for Ross, for little John. Now play with little John's dick, John Price." I don't know what that means.
She probably doesn't either, but sounds like she's trying to peg him for something.
Yeah, well, the accusations in the note about like John Price raping her daughter turns out to be lies. And
Surprise, surprise.
Beck is John Price's daughter, one of his daughters. And for Ross, for little John, his son, I guess he's accusing the family of incest and rape and all kinds of stuff. None of it's true. It's all lies. Constable Scott Matthews and Sergeant Graham Furlonger were the ones that attended the welfare check at the home of John Price on the morning of March 1st, 2000.
Did they get the brooms?
No, they walked in to one of the grisliest crime scenes of their careers, and at that point in time in Australia's history. Sergeant Graham Furlonger said, "As I went in, I saw straight ahead what I thought was a curtain. There was something hanging, blocking my entry into the house. I thought it looked like some sort of blanket or some sort of covering that had been placed on top of the archway. It was only when he reached out to push the object aside that he felt something cold, and Constable Matthews realized his arm was covered in blood. It was then that he realized it was in fact a human pelt. The skin minus the head, a full skin just hanging from the top of the door frame." So Catherine had taken a butcher knife that was next to the bed or hanging above the bed and stabbed John the 37 times. And before she laid down next to his headless, mutilated corpse and took a large pile of pills and passed out, Catherine stabbed John to death, skinned him, then put his skin on the metal hook, cooked his head and parts of his body with the intention of feeding him to the children. But She only missed out on feeding him to the kids because they were at the sleepover and the police came over to do the welfare check. Because when the kids had come home that day, they would have been eating their dad. But that's assuming she'd cleaned up the freaking mess everywhere because it sounds pretty horrific.
Yeah.
The authorities later found an additional portion of John's cooked butt in the backyard.
It's not the same as pork.
It was a rump roast.
Apparently, it doesn't taste the same.
Catherine peeled John's flesh back with such expertise and precision. She was able to leave the entire skin intact, including Price's nose, ears, genitals, mouth, and hair.
Not to give her credit for something disgusting, but that is, I mean, that seems very skillful.
Yeah.
But
So
you figure she had training and slaughtering and deboning and all that. So in order to keep the meat as intact as possible, that was her skill. She was good at it. So, and she had the tools.
Mm-hmm. The medical official said that she did such a good job at removing John's skin and she such expertise. They were able to reattach the skin to his body prior to his open casket.
Ew.
Disgusting.
But I wouldn't have even wanted to see that to just double check. Like, what?
Just tuck the skin along with the body in the casket. Call it a day, close that shit up, lock it.
They were just so excited to be able to put it back together.
I honestly feel like that was something that somebody was like, I wonder if we could piece this back together.
You know.
I don't feel like it would fit back.
Get the spray glue. We got this.
Disgusting. I picture like trying to put a pillowcase on a pillow and it's like you gotta shake the end of it.
No, because I bite the end of the pillow and shake the pillowcase on, so I know.
But Catherine's original plea she pled guilty to manslaughter. Or no, I'm sorry.
Manslaughter?
No. Catherine, they originally offer to plead guilty to manslaughter and it was rejected. So she was arraigned on March 2nd, so the following day, on charges of murdering John Price, to which she entered a plea of not guilty.
How does she figure that'll fly? He did it to himself.
They set her trial for July 23rd, 2001, but because her attorney was sick, they continued the case until October 15th, 2001. The trial began and Justice Barry O'Keefe offered the 60 jury prospects the option of being excused because of the photos that were going to be entered in as evidence, to which 5 of them accepted and backed out. The witness list was read out and other potential jurors dropped out because I guess they knew some of the people. I guess it was a smaller town type situation. And then eventually they pick their jury. They go through that whole process. And then the next morning, Catherine decides to change her plea from not guilty to guilty, and the jury was dismissed. It was then made public that Justice O'Keefe had been told of the plea change the day before, and he ordered a psychiatric assessment to occur over that night to determine if Catherine understood the consequences of changing her plea and if she was even able to make a plea of guilty. Like, basically find out if she's crazy or not. Catherine's lawyers had planned to defend her by claiming amnesia and disassociation. The claim was supported by most psychiatrists. Doctors did find her sane, and 2 psychiatrists decided that Catherine suffered from borderline personality disorder. I feel like that's a little late on the diagnosis, but whatever. No reason has ever been given for the guilty plea, and even though she changed her plea to guilty, Catherine still refused to accept responsibility for her actions.
Does she not realize what guilty means?
I guess not. And at the sentencing hearing, Catherine's lawyers requested that she be excused to avoid hearing some of the facts on the murder of John Price. But the judge said, this bitch fucking did this shit. She can sit her ass here and listen to it.
That's a little vulgar for a judge.
Well, he didn't say that. I'm paraphrasing.
Oh, he did another.
So when Timothy Lyons took the stand and described the skinning and decapitation, Catherine loses her shit in court, freaks out, and had to be sedated. On November 8th, 2001, Justice O'Keefe pointed out that the nature of the crime that Catherine's lack of remorse, that she deserved a severe penalty. He sentenced her to life in prison and refused to fix a non-parole period and ordered that her papers be marked, quote, never to be released. This is the first time this sentence has been imposed on a woman in Australian history.
Well deserved. I personally think she should have died.
Oh, it gets just slightly better. This one was like my jaw dropped. But in June 2006, Catherine appealed the life sentence, claiming that life in prison without the possibility of parole was too severe of a punishment for the killing of John. Justice Peter McKellen, Justice Michael Adams, and Justice Latham dismissed the appeal in the New South Wales Court of Criminal Appeal in September of 2006, with Justin McKellen writing in his judgment, quote, this was an appalling crime beyond most contemplation in a civilized society. And her ass is still in jail. So that's our dear sweet Catherine Knight. We will post pictures. Feel
Not
free
of
to
the
let us know
crime
what your
scene.
thoughts are. Yes, not of the crime scene. No, thank you. I don't want to see that.
No, it's fucking disgusting.
But I think it's
She
crazy.
didn't
that
get a
she
job
boiled
in
his head.
she didn't get like a job in the prison as a cook, did she?
I sure hope.
Because she couldn't even eat her own food.
I feel like she was probably not hungry. And I freaking need to stop saying I feel like. What the heck?
And 100%.
I'd stop that one.
Although I
did
feel
say
like
100,000% once.
I feel like we could make that a shirt.
I feel like
100%. And then irony would be, is it 100% cotton? Like, you know, it just says 100%. And then people are like, huh? 100%. And then a little dash at the bottom, Andy.
You say it too.
I'm going to start saying 90%. Totally solid 90. New catchphrase. Solid 98. 99.9? Yeah, maybe 99.9. Thank you for listening to Homicide Hobbies. I'm Claire.
I'm Andy.
Follow us each week to get your fix of the atrocities that occur in true crime. And don't forget to tell people about us and rate us if you like us. But don't rate us if you didn't. Just change that.